Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The Titans host the Patriots on Sunday. Brian Callahan, meeting with the media just a few minutes ago, ruled cornerback L'Jarius Sneed out for the game. He did not say who will be starting at quarterback between Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. He said Levis likely will be listed as questionable with the shoulder injury. Meanwhile, in New England, Drake May limited again at practice yesterday after the concussion that he suffered last weekend. The League Company countdown to kickoff hits the air at 9 a.m. on The Zone. Titans countdown starts at 10 and kickoff with Mike Keith, Coach Mack, and the rest of the Titans radio crew is at noon between Titans and Patriots. The Tennessee Vols come out of the bye week wearing the dark mode uniforms to host Kentucky at Neyland Stadium tomorrow night. Kickoff is at 6:45. Vol Network coverage on The Zone begins at 4:45. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Happy Friday here on Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door, 615-737-1045. And we have a lot to discuss. We're going to get into some clips that I pulled from yesterday because what everybody's been running with this morning until recently Callahan talked is like, it's Will Levis's decision to make it. And it's not Will Levis's decision. I understand that that's one part of what he said, but the whole clip really tells you what he said. Because do you really think that the coaches are not involved in the decision? And if you run with that, you're irresponsible. Get some critical thinking, get some ears and a brain, and let's break it down. Because I know, Blaine, that yes, he said something stupid.
He did.
But he also followed it up with what is really at the core of the decision is having a discussion with the team. And yes, if Will Levis comes to the team and says, I can't play and stuff, they're not going to play him. But just because he comes in and says, I can play, doesn't mean they're going to play him. And that's why it's a discussion. And it always has been. This is a ridiculous thing.
Do we have them?
Oh, we got them. We'll see.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You're right on it. But it's just hilarious because that's exactly what happens. But here's my whole point. He cannot say it like that.
But we have to understand at this point, he's just not smart enough. At this point, he's just not. We have to be.
It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
He has to be smarter than that.
Well, yeah, but he can't. So we have to be smart on his behalf. That's at the end of the day. I feel like we have to be smart on his behalf and not just run away with one half of what the clip says. So Sam Phelan asks him on if it's his decision. So here is Sam Phelan talking about whether or not it's his decision in the locker room yesterday.
Do you feel like it is your decision?
Yeah, no, it is. I think that it's hard for me to make that decision for myself. Obviously with going and playing against Indy and that in retrospect not being the best decision from not stepping up and saying something. But it is like these coaches just made it very clear to me that I need to be honest with how I'm feeling so that the right decision can be made.
He needs to be honest with how he's feeling with the coaches so the right decision can be made. That is the important part. But that's not the part everybody's going to focus on because that's not the part that gets the clicks, the listens, the calls, the fans riled up and all that kind of stuff.
I thought that's exactly what we listen to.
I mean, but that's the part, right? That's the part that matters, and that's the part where common sense needs to prevail, everyone. And that's all I'm asking for. And maybe that's asking too much of the media at large. All I'm asking for is some common sense and nuance. I mean, do we have to take everything that someone says so literal to the point that you ignore the rest of the statements he makes?
Yeah, but the fact is, the way he said it, though, acting as though he's going to be the one, saying that I'm playing or not playing, to your point. I mean, so that's where I think something is messed up because I think he actually believes that.
I think, he says, I need to be honest. And I think that's what he ultimately means when he says it's his decision.
Right.
It's not really his decision. It's his decision to be honest or not.
Right, exactly.
Like, he can go in there and lie. Now, obviously, he has to pass the eye test too, right? Like, there has to be, they're putting him through, a more rigorous regimen, I guess, this week to make sure that he for sure looks the part and feels the part. The only way they're going to know if he feels the part is if he tells them. And unless it's something obvious in the mechanics or the way they throw, because leading up to the Colts game, everybody thought that he could make all the throws necessary. And whether it was a couple of hits in the Colts game or whatever that maybe caused, some errant throws, but after that fact, he was not feeling like himself. I will say this. This whole regime needs rigorous public relations training. I mean, continuously from what Will Levis says, from what Colt Anderson says, from what Rand Carthon says, everybody needs like a 7-week course in the summer.
Coach Callahan,
not
though.
Coach Callahan, but they need a 7-week course on public relations. I am willing to come in and offer my services to provide these players and staffers some common sense training on what to say and what not to say.
And then you would leave me and Sammy.
No, I could do both. I could do both.
Okay.
I mean, like, it really wouldn't take 7 weeks to really just get this a handle, but like, I could not imagine having to do, and I don't know really what the PR of the Titans is like. I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking like, was it a scandal? Is that the big, they're putting out fires and everything constantly. And I kind of feel like this PR group is just like, probably like, he said what? Oh my God. Like, and not just Will Levis, Colt Anderson, all these guys, because that's a lot of damage control. But someone help them. I mean, please, for the love of God, someone help them.
I don't think I'll get any help anytime soon.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to come to their rescue. And I'm hoping that you don't. I hope your fees are too high.
Yeah. I would charge a lot. So I want to get to, now that we got that out of the way, Brian Callahan obviously today said it's his decision. Right. He has final say. Because how crazy, I mean, that's crazy, right? Shocking development. The head coach has the final say on who plays on game days.
Right, yeah. I mean, the player never
The fact that he had to get asked that question is also like.
Where are we going here?
Yeah. But I do want to talk about what Nick Holtz had to say about the week of Levis's week of work leading into this game. So here's Nick Holtz yesterday in his presser talking about the entire week leading into this Patriots game.
We're testing him more, I would say, and we are all doing a better job, medical, coaching, general manager, Rand, everybody, of really making sure we're all on the same page. We're all talking about it. I think, hindsight's 2020. I think we wish we would have pushed him harder, talked to him more, and that's kind of what it is. But now I think we're all very much on the same page of what we're looking for, what we need to feel, how he needs to feel, and Will sees that too. So I think we're all on the same page.
To me, that's the plan that needed to be adjusted. So it's a pivot, right? Because obviously the way they handled it the first time didn't lead to the desired results or more rigorous testing. And a part of that is probably because what is a kind of like that in-between AC joint sprain where it could be a week, but it could take multiple weeks. And with more rest down the horizon, you thought that coming out of the bye, he probably felt a lot better than what he did after a game, right? That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Only thing I would say is, added to that is, to me, it still went back to Will Levis. He needed to say something. At least they could at least be aware and then make a educated decision on if they thought he should play or not. And that's what I said, that's the hardest part as a player, because you feel like you can go, but do you feel like you're 100%? No, nobody feels 100%, but it's actually, part of your body where you're actually going to use it a lot. So that's tough. Just imagine if he tapped out, just like your man Richardson, because he says his arm has gotten weak. Imagine how that would play out in the fan base and in the media. I mean, some people may have looked at it like in the middle of a drive, like, oh my gosh, so hopefully people would give him some grace because he's injured, but some people wouldn't.
L'Jarius Sneed declared out. Andrew Rupsich will be headed to IR. We don't know who's going to take his roster spot, but there will be a couple of roster moves to be made. Ooh. Justin Hardy, the guy signed, will get some shots at gunner. Brian Callahan also follows that up, said they've made some personnel changes on special teams yet again, including Justin Hardy, but other changes. So we'll see how that works out this week. So another couple, we don't know how many, but another couple of players being thrown in for either the first time or coming back, like NWI and Jarvis Brownlee Jr. to the coverage squad. So we'll see how that works. But everybody else that's going to be on the injury report, and he said it will be lengthy, is a game time decision. So just a little update there. Everybody, including Will Levis, that's on the injury report, except for L'Jarius Sneed, except for Andrew Rupsich, are all game time decisions. But the majority of them are hopefuls. So that should be a good sign right there. We've kind of talked about Will Levis being on the sidelines these last few weeks could be a good thing for Will Levis. He could learn some stuff, see some stuff. Kayla Anderson asked him yesterday in the locker room about his time on the sidelines and what he could learn. So here is Kayla asking the question and Will Levis answering the question.
Will, how do you take this time when you are on the sideline, dealing with the injury, to look at maybe the game and what's happening from a different perspective?
Yeah, no, I think it allows you to take in more and focus on other aspects of the game that you might not really be able to put as much focus in if you're actually in the heat of it and playing. So that's been fun. And then, still just being the leader and, the captain that I am for this team and being the best that I can on the sidelines for all the groups. So still approaching, have approached each of these past few weeks, as if I'm playing and involving myself in the meetings and everything. So I feel like I've gotten a lot better even though I haven't played over the last few weeks.
So it sounds like he's learned a lot. He's still preparing like he's a starter every week, even though he may know for a fact that he's not going to be a starter, but mentally and everything. That is all good in theory, Blaine. This is all great stuff to hear. Now we got to see it. We got to see what you learned, right? I mean, at this point, it may not be this Sunday, but when the next time that you're starting, we got to see what you've learned.
Mm-hmm. Right, you said so. You don't know if he's even going to play this week, right?
We don't. Well, know. We literally don't know. I mean, that's what the coach said. So,
well,
and that's why I said may not be this week.
I'm gonna just ask you this premise. Okay, you're off for 3 weeks. You got to come back to radio. You think you're gonna be as sharp as you were when you left? Ooh.
Well, me, yes. Other people, maybe not. I when the mic comes on, the mic comes on. And that's just not a radio thing. That's just how I've always been. Just when the mic, and because I'm always thinking like about any show or any podcast or any kind of written content that I've done in the past. I'm even on vacation. Yeah. I'm like, even when I'm about to go on vacation in a couple weeks, I unfortunately will all be thinking only about this show.
Well, maybe that was a bad example. Maybe about something that you've done for a long time, but you haven't conquered it yet.
Video games would be a good example. Sometimes it takes me a little bit to do Halo.
Back. So I think that's a kind of really unfair analysis. I mean,
why is it saying that we got to see the stuff that you learned into action?
Well, no, but will it be consistent? So now we're asking him to be something that he wasn't already. You said when you come back, you got to immediately. I don't know about you.
I didn't say immediately.
No, I know. I mean, we're just talking about the fan bases and everybody else. We're expecting now for him to come out and be better than he was when he stopped. I just think that's on premise. Here's what I would do if I was actually the coach. I would not start him this week. I would play Mason Rudolph, and then I'd ease him in and get him a series here or there, maybe a total of maybe 4 series, maybe 2 or 3, but somewhere between there. Ease him back in. The same thing I would have done with the MPF. When you take time off, and especially at quarterback, I don't know who thinks somebody going to come back like he's a seasoned veteran. He hasn't even proven that he's a starting quarterback in the National Football League on a consistent basis. So that's kind of how I would play it, because then you're setting him up for failure with all these kind of statements. And people think, just like what we're talking about, that, you're going to come back and now you're going to be better. Really, like it's going to be applied that fast, boom, bang. He's going to have to still go learning process in live action. It still has to happen. That doesn't mean he's going to be good. That doesn't mean great or bad. It's just that, is he progressing mentally and going through his progression, is he improving individually? It may not always be in the results.
Well, we'll touch base on that after we talk to Easton in the next segment, because this is an interesting discussion that we're having. So next segment, we're going to be joined by Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports and talk about his latest article about patience and the foundation that's being built, and also the Patriots game. This has been Covered 2 with Blaine Bishop, Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. And we're going to go straight to the phone lines to talk to Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports. And Easton, it should come as to no surprise that the head coach of the Tennessee Titans actually does get to decide who plays quarterback on Sunday.
How about that? Yeah, it turns out that the players don't just pull themselves in and out of the game unless you're Anthony Richardson, I suppose. You do have to consult with the coach who's in charge of these things.
Yeah, I mean, no obvious surprises there. Everybody kind of took half of the clip that was said from Will Levis and kind of ran with it. But I do want to talk about, because that to me is a little bit of short-sightedness on the front of fans and media alike. But the emotional short-sightedness of aiming to be just good enough to accomplish nothing of importance and set yourself up poorly for the future is textbook dysfunction, which is a line straight from your latest article over at A to Z Sports. The Titans have opportunity to buck the national narrative of the organization as second rate. So talk about what the overall premise of this article is. We'll dive into some of the specifics of the foundation of the Tennessee Titans.
Right, and I wrote this article on the heels of the Anthony Richardson decision this week. We've now seen Bryce Young get benched and come back because the guy he got replaced by got in a car accident, so you know how much of that is them wanting him to come back. And then Anthony Richardson being benched for the foreseeable future in Indianapolis for Joe Flacco, the guys from Will Levis's draft class dropping like flies, and it follows this larger trend in the NFL of teams being really impatient when it comes to the quarterback position. And of course, there was a lot of discourse about this all over the internet this week about whether it's a developmental problem, a patience problem, how much of this has to do with what the quarterbacks are coming out of college looking like. And so I wrote about what good organizations do and how good organizations are process-oriented. They are obviously trying to win in the here and now, but they're always keeping the future in mind, and they're not listening to the outside noise and giving in to the impatient microwave culture we have as a society, as a sports fan society, where we want something now or we want to move on. We want to burn and turn the quarterback position. The Titans have a chance to prove they're one of those good organizations, which I wrote about in the article, but they have to be patient.
I think it was interesting because you asked Brian Callahan kind of like about embracing the suck. And I think he laughed because he's like, nobody likes to embrace the suck, unfortunately. But yeah, I think when you look across the league and you look at the organizations that believe in development, that believe in continuity, that do things without being overly reactionary to a negative dip, a down game or a down season, you know, those are the organizations you tend to see sort of in the mix most of the time. I continue to beat the drum, and I know everybody wants, it's a much easier for a society to blame one person instead of many people. But I continue to beat the drum every press conference. I just have such a hard time believing that Brian Callahan cannot succeed as a head coach of the Tennessee Titans, that he surely can succeed. Like, I'm 99% sure he can succeed as head coach of the Tennessee Titans.
I completely agree. And Zach, of course, you and I have talked about this a lot this week behind the scenes. Our morning show over at A to Z Sports this morning was entirely predicated on this idea about the bones of this Titans team, in particular right now, what Brian Callahan, his coaching staff, his scheme, his system look like for a Titans team that obviously on paper, you're 1-6. You're one of the worst teams in the league right now. A lot of things are not going right for you. But when we're looking to the future, we're looking maybe at the trajectory of this team. And again, being process-minded, looking at the processes in place here, whether or not there's reason for hope going forward. And on the topic of Brian Callahan in particular, right, there are a lot of pros and cons. I think there are more pros than cons, and maybe more importantly than that, I think that the pros are the more important things, right? And so things that fall into that pro side of the argument with Brian Callahan so far, obviously he's an elite communicator. That nobody disagrees with the fact that this guy gets it at the podium. He gets it from a PR standpoint. All indications from inside the locker room are that he can relate to his players, that he communicates well with his players and his staff. He's a great communicator. His scheme works. And, Zach, you and I talk about this all the time. It's easy, I think, for fans to not realize just how good this scheme looks on tape. When you go back and you watch the All-22, guys are getting open. The vision is there. This is a functional 2024 NFL offense that is most of the time just not being executed well. And Brian Callahan, it's on him to get his players ready to execute. But the actual game planning, the scheming, he's scheming his butt off. This is what you brought him in to be, an offensive coach that can scheme up his team and call the plays. And whether fans realize that or not, they have gotten what they've paid for in that regard from him so far.
We're talking
a lot of other little things, right?
Yeah. We're talking to Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports here on Cover 2 with Blaine and Zach.
Well, I think another part of this about quarterbacks is the increase of salaries of not only, quarterbacks, but also, even, all the players and the coaches.
Sure.
So I think that's changed kind of the expectations, and we think immediately like we're going to get a first-round pick, and they come in and they're just going to change the whole organization. I just don't know if that's the ticket to go at this point in time when you're expecting so much in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as much an economic problem as it is a patience problem, Blaine. I agree. As is the case with a lot of things, it feels like we continue to get tilted further and further towards this binary with the quarterback position of you got to get a good rookie quarterback on a rookie contract. Like, that's the way to win Super Bowls. That's the way to succeed in the NFL. You've got to get a good rookie in the draft, and then you've got to go all in on their rookie window while they're cheap. And that's because we've seen it work, obviously. That's the reason why everybody is constantly seeking that. But that leads to, like you said, it leads to a lot of really big contracts being handed out to key players at key positions. It leads to teams leveraging their future financially to go all in on a guy who a lot of the time they aren't quite sure yet whether or not he is, quote unquote, the guy. And so it's a gamble in that way. And with owners having to write these bigger and bigger checks, more and more guaranteed money each year, I think that they naturally are less patient. And when they hear the noise from the fans, like I'm sure Amy Adams-Strunk is with this Titans team, after she spent more money than any other team in free agency this spring, and they're 1-6, and things aren't working well with the new coaching staff, it seems, and the quarterback is not panning out and can't stay on the field because he's hurt. All of that is pressure on her to make these short-sighted emotional decisions. But again, when we look at the best teams in the league historically, they're always in the mix. The Packers, the Steelers, the Chiefs, those are the teams that come to mind immediately for me. They all have a recent and lengthy track record of ignoring the noise, trusting their process, being patient, and reaping the rewards.
What do you think is the best way in today's age to get your franchise quarterback?
It's obviously through the draft. And so I understand both sides of the coin here, that I think most coaches, if you asked them, if you had it your way, how long could you have with each quarterback before you truly gave up on them? I'm sure it would be more of an old school, I'd love to have 2 full seasons with the guy, that kind of thing, and just really be patient and, again, embrace the suck in that way, because playing quarterback is so hard, and because college does such a terrible job generally of getting guys pro-ready. And it's not just about playing in a pro-style college system either, right? I think pro-style college system is a really popular buzzword, but what really matters is identifying protections, footwork, fundamentals, being able to process a progression-style offense and not just go to the guy that schemed up your immediate read. Get through your reads. Like, those are the things that college quarterbacks aren't having to do because college is a different game, and colleges don't have any incentive to develop them in that way. So it takes a long time for certain guys to figure that out at the NFL level. On the other hand, the burn and turn method of quarterback drafting and going all in on a guy, if it sucks, you draft high again and you try again. I get that, because there are certain guys we've seen in recent history, Patrick Mahomes, C.J. Stroud, Joe Burrow, Already looking like Washington has found themselves a guy in Jaden Daniels that fits that bill. Guys that come in and it immediately clicks for them, where it changes your franchise overnight, and it is a game changer for you, not just that season, but in that player's rookie window, the next 4 or 5 years. And so the allure of that is so tempting that it causes people to make these rash decisions. So ultimately, to answer your question, Blaine, I think that you have to pick and choose your spots. And I think once you fire off your shot, once you stake your claim to a guy, you should change your mindset as an organization and say, we are going to stick by this guy, especially if coming out, the mark on him was this might take a while because he's got the trace, but he is raw. And give him 2 years, unless it's just brutally, painfully obvious immediately that this guy doesn't have it. Stick by him, ignore the noise, trust your process, and live and die with what he gives you.
There you have it, Titans beat writer for A to Z. He's just freeze.
So after saying all that, where do you land on what the Titans need to do on Will Levis? We've seen a few games from him, at least a handful of games under this regime. We saw the stuff that he put on tape last year. All this to say, we're talking about patience. We're talking about, avoiding dysfunction. What is based on what you've seen, what you have heard from this coaching staff, what do you think that is the right path for Will Levis, but also the health of this franchise?
Zach, it's obviously what it's been this whole time. The Titans have to ride with Will Levis. You live and die by Will Levis this year. His play has not changed that at all. The best long-term outcome for this team is once he's healthy, of course, don't rush him back in. Once he's healthy, to ride with him the rest of the season. And this is what the coaching staff wants to do. They want him to play. They want to get a full season out of him, or as much, the rest of the season out of him that they can. They refuse to have another situation like Indianapolis, so they've been very timid with that this week. They're erring on the side of caution. Wouldn't be surprised at all if he's held out one more week and plays against the Chargers, but he'll be back in the next week or two, I believe. And the only reason why he won't be the guy the rest of this year, barring injury, is if suddenly they lose the locker room, which I've seen no indications of so far. I mean, they're 1-6. It doesn't get much worse than this, and I don't see players pining quietly or loudly for a Mason Rudolph to lead them the rest of the way. That's one of the ways. The other way is, again, back to the initial point, if Amy Adams-Strunk forces their hand, which I don't think that she will do. I believe strongly she should not do. But those are the only reasons why Levis won't be the guy. And, again, you avoid what the Colts have done to themselves, benching Anthony Richardson so that you can maybe lose in the first round of the playoffs with Joe Flacco. Congratulations. It does nothing for you. You are in a worse position than you would have otherwise been. Meanwhile, the Titans will have lived or likely died by Levis, get to the end of the year, and be set up well for the future.
So it seems like everybody's on the same page between Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, Brian Callahan, and Amy Adams-Strunk. Is that the general vibe you get? And also, is Amy Adams-Strunk, she's obviously on board with the patience train right now. Do you think that could easily derail and she could jump off the train at any moment?
So in terms of Brinker, Carthon, and Callahan, I know they're all on the same page. Everything we've heard publicly as well as what I've heard privately, those guys are in lockstep. And that's, I think, a credit to this organization so far through the choppy waters. They have kept the vision. They have not swayed from their plan. Amy Adams-Strunk is the wild card, and that's why we're sitting here talking about it, right? Because I don't know. And I know what those three gentlemen have said about their perception of where she stands and what their understanding with her was before the season, what it remains now as they, check in with her weekly and have those conversations. But, I'm hearing it third hand, right? I'm hearing what they think she thinks. And so, I don't think she will prove herself to be a bad owner by making a rash and foolish decision in season. I hope that, the time that she spent with Miss Ford, the owner of the Lions up there in Detroit this past weekend, I hope that maybe Miss Ford rubbed off on her in that way, because the Fords have done a very good job of trusting the process. Dan Campbell starting whatever, I think 4-19-1 in his career. They stick by him. They trust the process. They draft well, and look at where they are now. That's what the Titans need to be doing. That's what Amy Adams-Strunk needs to have in mind. So I'm not sure that she's on board with those three guys, but I do believe she is. I'm relatively comfortable saying that she is, and the next 2 months will really tell. If the cracks start to become evident, then that could be concerning.
Just real quick, this will be your last question, and you got a little bit of time, but we got a question from Football Fred in the F&M Bank chat on YouTube. It's not really a question; it's I guess, a request. Please name examples of why you view the offensive scheme as working.
Sure. The number one easiest reason is that when you sit down and you watch the tape, what's the number one job of an offensive coordinator, in my opinion? It's to get guys open, right? To produce opportunities for the ball to get into the hands of playmakers where they have space to make something happen. And that's all over the tape. That's not just this past week. That's not just since the bye. It's been all season. People talk about, man, I wonder what they did differently with Calvin Ridley this week. If you watch the tape, they didn't do anything differently. And I asked the coaches this, guys, what am I missing here? What did you do differently? The answer was basically nothing. He's been this open. The quarterback just hasn't gotten him the ball. So that's the number one easiest thing to look at. They are creating opportunities. The other thing is, when you're just looking for creative markers of a scheme, looking for more modern elements of an offense, which I know Titans fans have wanted for a long time after the Mike Vrabel era, kind of that caveman football. Brian Callahan, his fingerprint, those kinds of fingerprints are all over his scheme, right? You're seeing them mix it up. You're seeing them utilize pre-snap motion at a much higher rate than the Titans have in recent years, which opens up a lot of opportunities for them. They're mixing in a healthy dose of play action, maybe not as much as I would prefer, but they are utilizing that as well. And so they're doing things, and of course, you're seeing cool plays every week. Or think back to the called back Jaquan Jackson touchdown last week down there in the high red zone. That kind of stuff is a result of the creativity of this coaching staff and the prowess of their scheme. The things that they are doing on paper during the week, there's really no indication that it needs changing. It just needs better execution, and the players and coaches have all said so.
Final question on this one then. What are you looking for in this Patriots versus Titans matchup? Because it's obviously going to be a slog to get through. It's not going to be explosive fireworks, everywhere on offense, defense, special teams. But what do you want to be able to say on Monday about this team after their performance on this Sunday?
Just the number one thing is don't be sloppy. Right, in the past two games where they've been on the road against these mega contender, awesome teams, maybe the two best teams in the league, they've been in the game until they've gotten sloppy enough to take themselves out of it. And it's the turnovers, it's the penalties, both in the play, but more annoyingly to me, the pre-snap penalties, and it's a lot of the same offenders on the offensive line and with tight ends and whatnot. So penalties, turnovers, those getting behind the sticks, those are the things that they've been killing themselves with. That I want to see them lose the game honorably. Does that make sense? They have dishonorably lost the past two games by just getting so sloppy. I mean, they're the guy that you see stumbling out of the bar at the end of these games where you're like, that guy has got to clean himself up, tighten that tie, button up your shirt, have some self-respect. That's what I want to see the Titans do, win or lose. Just be a respectable team at the end of the game.
Well, that is Easton Freeze. Thanks for joining us, Easton Freeze. You can read all of his stuff on A to Z Sports. You can watch all of his stuff on, again, A to Z Sports throughout the week and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, he does pregame, postgame stuff as well. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Easton Freeze. Thanks for joining us,
Always
Easton.
Always a blast, guys. Always a blast.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the Patriots quarterback situation, not the Titans quarterback situation, and who I at least think that is a better matchup for the Tennessee Titans at quarterback. We'll see if Blaine agrees. This has been Covered 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers. I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045. We're taking your calls. We're taking your opinions on the Tennessee Titans, so make sure that you call in. Last chance of the week to hear from me or Blaine and ask your questions to us. And then, of course, we got the F&M Bank Chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. And as Blaine's walking into the door, a lot of talk about whether Drake May is actually going to play or not. We'll probably know by the end of tomorrow, maybe Sunday morning, whether Drake May is active because he's still in concussion protocol. But I do want to say this. I think the Tennessee Titans should want Jacoby Brissett to play because Drake May has been not just better by a wider margin than Jacoby Brissett in the games that he has played, passing the ball and on the ground. And he is a dual threat quarterback. I mean, he's getting over 8 yards per rush in these games. He's got a rushing touchdown, 116 yards on the ground, but he's got 5 touchdowns through the air, 2 interceptions. Drake May is playing better than Jacoby Brissett, so I would much rather see Jacoby Brissett.
Ooh, and I think Drake May's going to play.
We'll see. He's been limited. Now, if I believe there has to be a full practice, and tomorrow would be his last chance to practice in full.
Oh.
So that's the key is tomorrow's practice.
Saturday's practice?
Yeah, it would be the last day for him to have a full practice on the schedule, if I'm not mistaken, because he was limited today, limited all week, and I believe at some point you have to be a full practice participant to clear concussion protocol.
Oh, well, I don't know if that's a good recipe, so hopefully we get what we need. Brissett, are you sure?
Yes. I mean, I was surprised by the wide margin. I mean, let's just take
So is that why Mayo is kind of backtreading that he was going to let May kind of sit and wait because he's playing so much better? He doesn't want to say that he's actually playing better.
Through his 5 quarterback starts, he's had 2 touchdowns through the air, 1 interception. But that's 5 games. 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, 0 rushing touchdowns, by the way. That's Jacoby Brissett. He has a 59.1 completion percentage, which is below 60, obviously. I mean, I don't even know why I had to clarify that. But on the flip side, you look at Drake May through 3 games, 3 starts. He has thrown 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's had a 63.1 completion percentage, and his yards per attempt, adjusted yards per attempt, which is like adjusting for a couple different things. It gives you a more true representation. 6.83 versus 5.2 for Jacoby Brissett. So in the big scheme of things, this is the guy that you would not want to face for the Tennessee Titans, Drake May. I'd much rather face Jacoby Brissett. Now, he's not going to obviously make a lot of mistakes, but he's really not going to do anything too explosive like these other guys unless there's a lot of injuries, and the Tennessee Titans defense just has one of those games where they have their lack of eye discipline.
Well, I don't want to go woe is me, but I feel like in this game, all stats are out. This is going to be, everybody's going to be fighting to get this win. Probably a low-scoring game, and, whatever team doesn't make the most mistakes, I guess, is going to win. But, man, I think this could actually help either team kind of go in a different direction. When I say that, I mean not going to run and make the playoffs or anything, but they'll continue to grow and get better, and you can start seeing it in the results of having some wins. Because if you watch the Patriots, I mean, man, they're very competitive. They play really hard. Their defense is still they get after it. So, that'll be an interesting test for Levis or Rudolph, whoever's, going against them on defense. So I think this team, man, this is, both teams seem like they're disappointed, but I think both are going to be desperate for a win. And then, to me, more pressure then goes on the home team.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it this way. The Tennessee Titans desperately need to win this game. And it's not really for anything other than you need that break in these losing games.
Yes,
And
you gotta get it.
And listen, you can win this game and not really worry too much about draft positioning. If you're a fan rooting for draft positioning, if you're one of those fans, winning this game isn't going to take you out of the race. Now, maybe at the end of the year, if you're 2-15, and maybe you're still number 2, but at the end of the day, the health of this franchise and for the good of the players, right? These players all week have been asked questions about the tanking mentality. And they're like, we put in too much hard work to want to lose. Now, just because you don't want to lose doesn't mean that you will win, but they put in too much work. They get paid too much. I mean, I think Coach Mack put it best. There's a difference between being a professional and a difference between being paid. And right now, there's a lot of professionals on this team that not only want to win, but they also want to put a good product out on tape because there's a lot of players on one-year contracts.
Yeah, a lot of stuff still to prove. I mean, you got some very motivated players. So, yeah, at the end of the day, this is, this is a big-time business. And, big-time business is you do your job. And if you start worrying about other people's job, then I think you're in the wrong profession.
Do Patriots fans travel? Because everybody's like, oh, there's going to be a lot of Patriots fans there. But, like, are you traveling for a team like the Patriots? I mean, it is Nashville, but I guess you could always travel to Nashville and not go to the game. But I think there's going to be more empty seats than there are Patriots fans, I guess is how I would put it.
Yeah.
It may be a 33% Titans fans, 33% Patriots fans, and 33% empty seats. that may be the way that they're going right now. When we come back, we're going to continue our Tennessee Titans discussion. We're going to talk about the health of the franchise, the bones of the roster, and more about the Patriots matchup. This is Big Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Hour number 2 of Cover 2 here on 104.5 The Zone. Blaine Bishop, Zach Lyons here with you to get you through this next hour of talking about the Tennessee Titans. And Blaine, a lot has been made about the foundation, the scheme, and all this kind of stuff of the Tennessee Titans. And of course, I've kind of gone maybe a little bit extra, but I took the Titans depth chart and I was kind of looking at it. And I was looking at who are the roster mainstays, the guys you can depend on that will be here next year, that already fill starting spots or roles that you can kind of build around. Obviously, these aren't the only guys that will be on the roster because you got like veterans that are under contract and stuff like that. And I look at it, I'm looking at Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears, Calvin Ridley for sure. Jaquan Jackson will be here, but Calvin Ridley's a guy, a mainstay. J.C. Latham, Peter Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry, Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat, Harold Landry, barring a trade, L'Jarius Sneed, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., Roger McCreary, Amani Hooker. That's a pretty good starting list of players that can contribute and build around, and most of these players are Rand Carthon guys. And I use that to illustrate that while, yes, Kenneth Murray's here, maybe he's here next year, maybe he's not. Chidobe Awuzie will likely be here next year, but he's probably behind Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Arden Key is still here, but maybe he's traded, maybe he's not. Easy contract to get out of. That they still have a lot of the important positions kind of figured out, and it's a good stepping off point. Obviously, quarterback, massive question mark. Right tackle, we know the answer. We just don't know what the answer will be. We know what the answer is in 2024. We just don't know what it will be next year. But to me, this is a good foundation for Rand Carthon and what he has built for his first year of being able to overhaul the roster. They kind of did this half in, half out kind of deal last year where they were still trying to chase the ghost, but try to get younger. And this year, they got younger. They decided to make some moves for the future with the present in mind, but for the future. That's a really good list of young players. And really, Peter Skoronski and Lloyd Cushenberry played better coming out of the bye, too.
Yeah. Well, typically when you're putting a team together, naturally it always starts with the quarterback, but you got to have your edges, which is the tackles, offensive tackles. And then you got to get your pass rushers. And then in this day and age with the passing game, you got to get some cornerbacks. It doesn't have to be high price, but that's kind of where you start. And they pretty much have hit all those spots theoretically, whether it's be a free agency and draft. So you're trying to mix and you're trying to always have balance. I think that's when we hit our peak is when we had a good balance of veteran guys that have been around like myself too. We had some really young guys who can contribute immediately. And then, a 2-year window, 2 or 3 year window, they impacted the team. Javon Curse and guys like that really took us to the next level, Samari Rowe. So that's kind of where you want to get to. I feel like they're not far from that. That's why, in another draft class, and speaking of that, after another draft class, where are we at now? But do you consider this Rand and Brinker's first year, or do you consider it the second year? I wasn't up there, and I know it's kind of hard to judge if he had total autonomy, but he was on the staff, and I'm at least say Rand and Brinker were there in the rooms, but I don't think they had full autonomy to make the final call.
Right.
Maybe have influence, but not the final call.
So it's interesting. So I look at it like this. Rand Carthon has said numerous times that he's a servant GM. Whether you guys want him to be a servant GM or not, the listeners or whatever, that's what he says he is. His job is to get the players that the coaches want. And I think that's what he did last year. To the best of his ability. Yeah. Now, and I think that when you talk about, because they did the same thing they did this year, where they asked for coach tape, right? Mm-hmm. What do you guys want? Show us tape of what you want from, for your team. Whether those coaches did that or not, and maybe they didn't, maybe they did, that's a little bit different. But at the end of the day, the general manager is, look at Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch. Mm-hmm. Who has the power there? Kyle Shanahan. Mm-hmm. Now, Kyle Shanahan, but they work in collaboration. John Lynch and him have conversations. They talk about who to get, when to get them, and all this kind of stuff. So to me, it's like, yes, part of these things is Rand Carthon's doing. Maybe it's not maybe he didn't put forth enough of a strong voice. Maybe he didn't hold his ground because he was too much of a servant last year. And maybe there's some instances of that this year with right tackle. Maybe he should have stepped in and said, hey, listen, I've seen this NPF kid. I've been around this NPF kid. We can't rely on him. Instead of just trusting Bill Callahan. But Bill Callahan is Bill Callahan. And, it's kind of hard to overturn someone with his experience and tell that person that they're wrong. But sometimes you got to make those hard conversations and discussions. So I view this as kind of how I framed it at the beginning is like, this is Rand Carthon's first year to enact the full scope of his vision, the full scope of overhaul, because this team needed to overhaul last year and they chose not to.
Well, now there's an added piece, Brinker, who he actually hired, and then all of a sudden now he was elevated to a higher title.
Higher in title, different responsibilities, completely different responsibilities, because he's not overran in any of the responsibilities that were outlined to him in the press release. Right. The only real overlap is obviously Chad Brinker's still involved in scouting because it's part of it. It's part of the analytics model. Right. You got to do both. I mean, Chad Brinker is a scout at heart. He's probably always his opinion on that is going to be value, but he's over the analytics department.
Right. That's what
he's
he was
not over Rand
Carthon.
Carthon. He's over the analytics department.
I mean, last year, what did they hire him for?
Analytics and salary cap assistance. I'd have to go back and look at what it was.
What I'm getting is, what is he now?
Same. What he has taken in, according to the press release that they released, is he's more worried about security. He's worried about the video production. I'd have to go back and look at everything. Travel arrangements. Like he's over departments that are operations that involve for the football team, like that other stuff. The only thing that's really related to the game of football, what's on the field and what they do, is the analytics department.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So, I mean, but he's still a big part of the decision-making process. That's why you got to include him, because he is a guy that knows analytics. These are his models, right? So look at it this way. Rand Carthon is you, and Chad Brinker is me. You look at the film, you played the sport, you know the film. I'm the analytics guy, and that's what Chad Brinker brings.
Well, and I would think being around football that long, he's part of that process too. What I'm getting at is who if things go wrong and awry, who gets the finger pointed at? Because we all know that's where it works. To me, since you've collaborated, to me now, Brinker's put himself in a position where, no, it's not me, it's Rand. And then Rand was like, well, he told me to do this. I mean, so that's why I was asking about the pecking order. And then where are you at on what year they are as far as a staff? Is this his first year or considered, or is it his second year? Because you say to put together, a nucleus that, for some young players, it seems on paper pretty good.
Yeah, I look at it this way. If the problems are roster, Rand Carthon's on the hook.
Okay.
Because that's what they said. Okay. They laid out that power structure. So here's the stuff that Chad Brinker's involved in. And these are the departments that he's over. Salary cap management, analytics and strategy, communication and information systems, and team operations like security, video, equipment, and grounds. So that's what he is over, according to their press release when they did the power structure.
And what's his title?
His title is President of Football Operations. So that is what he's over.
President.
Rand Carthon is Executive Vice President / General Manager, and he is over scouting, coaching and roster decisions, so Brian Callahan and all that kind of stuff, sports medicine, player engagement. Those are the things that he is over, and he has final say on the roster. So that is the power structure. They both report to Amy Adams Strunk, who's both over them. One of them does a report to the other.
Right.
But they do work in the spirit of collaboration.
Good. Great there for clarity for me. Rand is overall football decisions, and even on game day of who dresses, who doesn't. Correct,
right? So like roster control. Now Brian Callahan does have game day say. Okay, so that is one thing they have clarified since the start of the season that he has final say. Now, obviously, Rand Carthon has roster control,
right?
But he's a servant GM, so Callahan's going to be involved. But he'll have there's no veto power,
right?
For Brian Callahan. There was veto power last year.
With Vrabel.
There were tiebreakers leaned on the Vrabel side, I would say.
Oh, so Vrabel had final decision.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Okay. So roster control and all that kind of stuff. So it was very clear, and this is all from the initial press release. So when I did this, because I wrote about this when it happened, because everybody was really confused, and I even put up a picture of a power structure tree because I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page and because I thought it was very important because it is confusing. But I think that, look at it this way, if Burke Nihill probably wasn't the CEO, and really Burke Nihill does more public relations kind of deal.
Yeah, he's on the
business lawing side. Then probably Chad Brinker would be like CEO. He's like a Steve Underwood kind of guy. Mm-hmm. Whereas, that's kind of how I would view it. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of like now they've split the Steve Underwood role into two parts, and some of that's gone to Chad Brinker, probably in an effort to keep him stay, because I bet other teams have called trying to get him to be GM, so they gave him a bump in title. That's just a estimation, a hunch, but that's how I would also kind of view it.
Got you. Perfect.
And I do. Chef Rans does make a good comment in the F&M Bank chat on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live, but specifically YouTube. He goes, "I thought Levis had final say on who plays." So that's what everybody thought. When we come back, we'll talk more about the Tennessee Titans and New England Patriots. This has been covered too with Zach Lyons and Blaine Bishop here on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, Tennessee, fall is here and is in full swing. And Cool Ray's here to make sure your home is ready for all the fun in the fall season. We've got some sizzling deals that will keep you comfortable and worry-free all season long. And ensure your family stays hydrated and healthy with free water quality testing, because nothing beats a refreshing drink of pure water on a nice fall day. And Cool Ray also offers a $149 main sewer line camera inspection. And right now, they also offer 15% off whole home dehumidifiers, as well as $500 off whole home generators. So let Cool Ray take care of your home so you can focus on making family memories. And all you have to do is call us today at 615, of course, 709-8699. That's 709-8699. For some of these scorching hot deals. So Cool Ray, your trusted partner in a cool and comfortable Tennessee fall. And all you have to do is visit coolray.com.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top 4 dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Store. 615-737-1045. You want to get in on the conversation. And Blaine, we were talking about Chad Brinker, Rand Carthon, the power structure. I kind of laid it all out. If you missed it, you'll want to catch that on the podcast or, wherever you get your podcast, that first little segment.
Yeah. Now I know who to blame. You know, if something goes wrong.
That's what I wanted to get to, is that you know who to blame, right? Like right now, Rand Carthon was the main guy in getting Brian Callahan here. So if you disagree with that decision, think that he should be, that Brian Callahan's doing a bad job and that's reason enough to fire someone, you fire Rand Carthon. Rand Carthon has roster control, right? So if you think the players are bad or whatever and you're looking to fire someone, you go to Rand Carthon. There is no scapegoat. And like last year, because of put Vrabel aside, Rand Carthon could shift blame if he chose to. I'm not saying that he would, but if he chose to, could shift blame to like an Anthony Robinson, the pro scout, director of college scouting, or Chad Brinker. He could shift blame.
Right. Shift.
There is no blame shift right now, really, anymore. Because obviously, if a director of college scouting is still Anthony Robinson, but guess what? The draft picks looked good.
Right.
So he is in charge of free agency. Rand Carthon is. So there is no, if the hammer were to come down, it's likely going to start with Rand Carthon. I don't think there's another scapegoat you can point to based on what they said. Now, again, I'm not, here to advocate for anybody's firing. I'm here to advocate for patience. But that's just for me, for a clarity perspective, because I know that clarity is sometimes often lacking from this organization or from the media market.
Right, yeah. Well, social media, then things get carried away. My point is, okay, how do you think the structure is on, and this is always interesting, on coaches asking them to let go another coach? Head coach let go another coach, because typically the head coach has that kind of. I don't know how this is structured. How do you think it's structured with that per se? If Rand or Amy came in and said, "Hey, I think we need to do this."
Okay, so let's use Colt Anderson as an example. Right. So I think ultimately they would probably approach Brian Callahan, have a conversation about it, decide what to do as a collective. Technically, Rand Carthon has final say. I don't know if Rand Carthon will pull the final say card. I don't know if that's in his DNA, I guess you could say, because, I mean, he is a guy that builds on relationships and stuff like that. Trust is a big thing with Rand Carthon. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. I'm not here to say what it is, but I would think that would be the process. Now, if it gets really continued, if we have another game of Detroit Lions mishaps to that degree,
right?
I think it would be. I think Brian Callahan would have a tough time not firing him. I know that he trusts and believes in Colt Anderson. They work together. I don't know if you necessarily classify working together for 4 years as being buddies, but they work together. I know that they've interviewed a lot of people throughout this process. And again, I don't think firing anybody really fixes anything, but it'd be kind of hard to look everybody in the face on Monday morning if there was another mishap like that.
Oh, well, if that happened, then well, our player or two on special team got to go. One of the two. So that can't happen in one season 2 times. No.
Yeah, right. And I don't think it's going to be, because I do want to bring this up. Obviously, they're making changes on special teams. Now, we both have kind of talked about whether or not making this many changes is a good thing, right? Because we never know, like, adding these new pieces, how much practice do they get through the week? How much have they actually played special teams before? Like, adding Justin Hardy is not that big of a deal. To me, here's a good story, and this goes into your point about special teams players and what makes special teams players really good to the next level. This is from a clip from One Jets Drive, which is a Jets documentary. This is where Justin Hardy played a few years ago, but this is specifically from 2021. He was a Pro Bowler in 2022 for the New York Jets. He entered the NFL as a wide receiver, realized if he wanted to stick around, he had to commit to special teams. And now he's team captain. So back in 2021, he was team captain, and was one of the best gunners in the league. Pro Bowl right there. So to me, I look at it and I go, this is a guy, to your point, Pro Bowler special teams are out there on the free agent market because teams construct their roster so much differently than even just a few years ago.
Yeah. And so now, after 3 years, you haven't proven that you're actually going to be a starter in this league or be pushing to be starting, then you're probably moving on because of the cycle. You can go keep drafting and signing guys. So, yeah, special teams is, you used to see Pro Bowlers, and it was not just the returner, the skill guys. It was actually special team guys that you knew you wanted on your special teams, and you would pinpoint these guys, and you could see them clear as day on tape, being the guy like, whoa, this guy we're going to have to address. We're going to have to put 2 people on him. And those are the ones that kind of changed the game, and it just seems like that's gone for naught. I mean, I get it because, you can't pay, you make the Pro Bowl, they can't pay a special teamer who only probably plays 10 plays a game. A lot of money. So they sacrificed what the Titans did on their roster for a more skilled player who, if somebody went down, they'd be a better performer than the actual guy they were competing with on special teams. And I get it. And it's a coin toss type deal of the decision because you more likely say some guys are going to get nicked up. They're the starters more than not. And then they're going to have to play temporarily. Then in a play, hopefully we can, I'm not going to say hide, but like we can make it through and manage with, he's a solid special team player. So those are tough decisions. I know we sit here and act like it was easy, that maybe they should have went for some more special teams guy, but at the same time, the other players may have been better backups than the other ones. So those are the tough choices that you got to make. You got to kind of live with them, but those are pieces that you can get anywhere.
And those are the pieces that Chad Brinker did not make those decisions. That's a Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan thing. Now, Chad Brinker's input may have been heard because of analytics and all this kind of stuff, but that ultimately those decisions come down to Rand Carthon. Now, it's Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan, but it ultimately comes down to Rand Carthon. If you want to watch that clip, it's about a minute and 30 seconds clip of the Justin Hardy interview from 2021 from the New York Jets. I just retweeted it. So at the Zach Lyons on Twitter, if you want to go watch that. What do you think? This seems to be in years past, compared to years past, Blaine, a little bit more of a proactive week-to-week kind of team. And I want to bring that up in two different ways. The offensive line, or specifically right tackle, and the situation at special teams. They are making moves and not just sitting there saying, figure it out. Now, obviously, the moves you can make a right tackle are a little bit more limited, while the stuff over at special teams is a little bit more varied. But what do you think about this proactive approach? Because you had mentioned something, and maybe I just misunderstood you, and I wanted to go back down this path, that you kind of need to give these guys a little couple of chances on special teams. I mean, not right tackle specifically, but just talking about special teams, because they are inputting a couple of different faces than last week. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's always tough when you transition because you want certain things. You want to get your timing down and make sure he understands his responsibility. You know, everything's a risk at this point. But to me, you have nothing to lose when you're sitting here where we're sitting.
Gotcha.
And so I think, pressure is off, even for Will Levis, even to go back and play at a high level there. Now you should be, what do we have to freaking lose at this point?
Yeah.
So you just don't want any crazy, Detroit Lions type special team performance. So I think, the sky's the limit now at this point. You can kind of rotate pieces in. I don't think people are going to care as much now compared to in the season where, you thought you had something to play for.
I look at it and I go, I just like the proactiveness, because normally what would happen is probably you see the same players trotted out there week over week over week, despite any of the issues. And
I do.
I do like that proactiveness. It'll be interesting to see if it works, and if it doesn't work,
can't say
what
you didn't
degree
try.
does it fail?
Right. You can't say you didn't try. Though.
You can't say you didn't try, and that's what you could almost say a couple of these dating back a while about some of the things that you continue to see from this organization on the field is like, man, why aren't they just trying something different?
Yeah.
And listen, the options at right tackle, they're not great. Okay,
well, that's what they're saying they're doing there.
Yeah, but they're at least trying to find something that works. And if that's something that works is John Ojukwu for a series and Leroy Watson for another series.
Cool with that.
That's fine, I guess, at this point. Because like you said, what is there to lose? And at this point, I think that is the mindset that fans should also take, is like, what is there to lose? Like, just go out there and let it loose. Like, be loose on the field. And that's something that Will Levis has struggled with, I think, this year, is just being loose.
Yeah.
He's just very uptight. And so I think that's an anxiety, fight or flight kind of deal. It's a psychological thing. Like, he's so in his head that he has let his anxiety kind of take over, and I think that's why he's so tense and jittery and all this stuff that you see. And I think he just needs to just let it loose. And you've had time to sit, whether he plays this weekend or not. Let it loose. Just go out there and have fun. And that's really what all these players should be doing, is go out there and have fun and not overthink it. And they may start stringing together wins and look like a competent football team. I just think they're all, and not just Levis, I think they're kind of all just kind of in their head for the most part.
Well, I think what you're talking about more so is they're in their head. They're all really trying really hard to win a game. They're pressing. No doubt about it. And you get in that situation as an athlete that there's no way around it. You want to win a game because all you got to do is just win one and figure out a way how to win it. So maybe this week it will be how not to lose it. I don't know. Between them and New England, I have no idea what may happen here, but man, it's like you take a deep breath and then finally you can exhale, and that's where they're at. And we all know when you're holding in air, you're tense and tight.
Yeah.
See, so it's tough, man.
That's why I think the Dolphins. Go back to that Dolphins game, and I side with you. That bye came at the worst time. Because they got the XL.
They did.
And then they had a week to dwell on it. They had a week to dwell on other stuff, and they couldn't just go straight into practice, keep their mind on the next opponent. They got their time off, they dwelt. It just came at the worst time, because I think that was a big Excel moment, and then they had time to inhale and hold their breath, and that's what you're saying. I think you were spot on with that.
Yeah, and then they just keep back, and I know everybody's laughing, a couple bounces here or there, But just imagine now they don't have the turnovers, and we can say it about the Bears game to even this game. So I just don't understand the function of why are different players actually doing the same mistakes as the people who were starting. That baffles me, especially a guy who's been in the league. So that shows you that there's some form of pressure within the building, not being said, but everybody feels it.
Yeah.
Every player feels it.
That's just one of those, I guess, got to be in the building to know what's really going on kind of deals. And you've been in the building before, but you never know what's going on in a locker room or anything like that.
To win. I've been on some sorry teams now. The pressure to win is never spoken on, but it's definitely felt in there.
Let's go to the phones. Let's go to John in Ashland City who wants to talk about right tackle. John, you're on with the Cover 2 with Blaine and Zach.
Yeah, hey, afternoon, fellas.
Afternoon.
My two-part question. Who evaluates the offensive line? Because it seems like for the last 4 years we've been looking for an offensive line, and
My bad. I
ain't had no real, result there. And two, to try everything. Well, we got a left guard that played tackle his whole career. Couldn't we move him to the right tackle?
Those are some good questions, John. I think I accidentally hung up on him, so I apologize, John. I thought he was done. If you pause, I'm going to take the pause. But
you better watch out now. You better watch out. He dangerous over there. He got control.
Because I interrupted. Easton paused for a second, and I just asked another question. I was like, "Oops!" I think he was about to say something else.
This is why I'm not under control of anything over here.
So Bill Callahan evaluates the offensive line. And then Rand Carthon and his team also evaluate the offensive line. So, it is a dual evaluation. They come together. I would say that Bill Callahan's experience has allowed him more flexibility and more say in the offensive line. And as far as Peter Skoronski, this team told you when they drafted him he's a guard. The NFL, by and large, told you he was a guard even before he came in. And when they took over, one of the first questions they asked Brian Callahan and Bill Callahan was, what is their assessment of Peter Skoronski? And they stuck to what they've said in the past. He is a guard. Because Brian Callahan talked about Peter Skoronski when he was with the Bengals in a podcast and said, he's a guard. He's just not a tackle. And listen, I think we've seen him struggle at guard enough to say that if you put him at tackle, it's going to be maybe not NPF levels, but it's going to be pretty bad at tackle. And I think that guard has always been his natural position. Yeah. And let me say something. If you're looking for a tackle at the top of the draft right now for 2025, good luck. There are so many tackles already being labeled tackles that will be guards at the next level, including Banks at University of Texas. Ooh, buddy, this is not a good tackle draft class. I like the right tackle over at LSU, whose last name escapes me at the moment. Not Will Campbell, but the other one. I like him in the second round for this team. Get a little bit of draft talk, but that draft's where my bread and butter's at. But right now, the rumors are from Tony Pauline, who's really in tune, and he told everybody about Peter Skoronski. He's one of the first ones to do it. These guys are guards, for the most part, and it's bad.
Yeah, that was one of the things I agree with them on from the beginning. I get it. Everybody saw him play tackle in the Big Ten, and he went against some, formidable players. But I think when you start evaluating guys going from left tackle to guard, it's almost just like how I went from corner to safety. He doesn't have the foot quickness. Nobody's going to tell you why they are sure he was guard, because that's why. And by the way, he has the foot quickness to play guard. Now he's making sure he has the power.
Yeah.
And he's kind of showing
has gotten better.
But he has. So maybe not to the rate, and that's always up to debate. I'd love to hear you, since you love drafting a guard with your number 11th pick and the expectation of a guard being 11th that was converted from tackle.
Yeah.
So some people in their mind, they always thought he was going to be a tackle, and I think that's why. And it's always going to be a conversation about him. But for him to have success in this league, he's at the right position, whether it's left guard, right guard, or what have you. He's a guard in the National Football League, because the guys with speed and foot quickness kind of give him a little bit of trouble even at the guard position.
And let me clarify something for Chef Ran in the F&M Bank Chat YouTube. Will Campbell, I think, is the only tackle right now that is clearly a tackle in college tackle. And not all the top tackles, but most of the first rounders are looking like guards for the most part, or disasters and development projects at tackle. So the LSU tackles, I can tell you for sure, they are both tackles at the next level. So I will say this. I do think we're 1-6, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's 7 games. We've kind of said 8 games for this offensive line to gel. Obviously, right tackle's going to be an issue for the rest of the year. But the rest of these guys have been improving slowly but surely, becoming more consistent, from even Dylan Radins all the way down to J.C. Latham all across the board. And that's what we've kind of heard. It takes about 8 to 10 games for a new offensive line, which they're all new. J.C. Latham has never played next to Peter Skoronsky. Peter Skoronsky has never played next to Lloyd Cushenberry. Lloyd Cushenberry has never played next to Dylan Radins. And Dylan Radins has got like 15 people he's playing next to. So, these are all new. So, I will say, because someone asked what's worse, the offensive line or special teams, and I think it's clearly special teams. I think the offensive line has gotten better. They have allowed the least amount of sacks since coming out of the bye.
Yeah.
I mean, this team's looking good.
Yeah, that's why I said incrementally.
Offensive line
is getting better. And I think the offense in general is getting better. Now you want to see if the quarterback, when he comes back, will he be better?
Yeah.
Will it all start coming together? It just takes time, maybe not as fast as everybody wanted, but I'm just hoping that happens. Even without, Will Levis, it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. Do you just see some consistency and progress? And that's what you're looking for as an athlete in hope. And I know the fans just want to grab a little piece of something, some success here and win a game. So, because they're not this bad just on their talent. I know their record is what they say. They are not this bad. So, just getting one off could be just the pressure off your back, and it could just go on a little bit of a run, at least look respectable by the time the season's up.
And I think also there's something to say about the type of players that they're bringing in as far as the draft class. Look at J.C. Latham.
Yeah, solid dude.
Okay, solid dude, but think about all the stuff that we've heard about him practicing out in the rain and all that kind of stuff, doing all these things. A totally different personality from the guy that got drafted that we've been talking about for a while now, NPF.
Oh,
totally different.
Totally different. Yeah, this guy's going to have a C on his jersey next year, I would assume.
And I think that, again, goes back to Rand Carthon and the process of heading into this year, the 2024 process, and why patience should be there, really, because he found a franchise left tackle. Yeah. I mean, that's a guy that you can depend on next year to be left tackle, and the year after that and the year after that, barring injuries, that's the guy. And that there's something to be said for a franchise that has had trouble filling that position since Taylor Lewan, that's had trouble filling some of these other positions. They've been able to do it, and they found the guy. And it was a guy that everybody thought couldn't play left tackle. Mm-hmm. It was a guy that everybody thought, well, what are they doing? They're drafting a right tackle, going to switch him to left tackle, and they proved him wrong. Mm-hmm. So there are some feathers in the cap for Bill Callahan, for Rand Carthon, for Brian Callahan, for this. There's some black marks on there in the right tackle situation. But for the most part, these guys are starting to play together and play like a unit. So let's see how that continues, because I think right now Dylan Radins has done enough to get a 2-year contract. I think he's the guy you bring back at right guard. Don't create another hole when you don't have to.
Yeah, well, see, that's the question. 2-year contract, 3-year contract, Dylan Radins, or do you draft a guard and a tackle?
No guards. No more guards drafting. When we come back, we're going to talk about the injuries that keep popping up for the Tennessee Titans and how, despite all these injuries, all these game time decisions, I think the Tennessee Titans should still win this game on Sunday. When we come back, that's Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop, Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
For many of you who have lived here a long time, you already know Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee area for your European car repair needs now for 24 years. We've all gotten to watch them grow. And I don't know about you, but I love watching the hometown business take off. Well, we're now proud to announce the 5th location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road, right across the street from Dairy Queen. And Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. So pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in the barn of his backyard of a single-wide trailer and now grow to 5 locations repairing thousands of cars each month. And at Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can just visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But I was done, Blaine.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045. Last minute to get your phone calls and thoughts in on Tennessee Titans versus New England Patriots coming up this Sunday. Blaine, this game, it's going to be a tough watch. It may cause some fans to check out because it's going to be so boring. This could be the most boring game since the Ravens sacked Marcus like 9 times in the rain kind of game, and it was like 20-9.
No. What's the total points in this game? I know you must know.
Oh, it's got to be the under. I'll look up the points, but there's a lot of injuries, right? So looking at all these injuries for this Tennessee Titans, they're going to have a lot of people questionable. And I wonder, like, even with some of the guys missing, this Tennessee Titans team needs to beat and should beat this New England Patriots team, right? I'm not crazy, am I?
No, I'm not saying should.
Come on. 38.5, by the way, is the point total.
They've won 2 games, haven't they?
They have, but I mean, like,
hey man, they beat the Jets.
This is what. Well, let me say this: Drake may be the game changer in my opinion, but really, this one should be pretty bad. Like, this is basically, and I think Brandon Scott in the F&M Bank channel on YouTube hits it perfectly. This is basically preseason football.
What says 38 points, right?
Yeah, 38.5 points is the over/under for this game. The Titans, of course, are favored by 3.5.
What?
Yep. Part of that, like, you get 2 points.
Right. I thought it was 3 home game.
Yeah, you get now. I think it's now 2 points roughly for home game.
Titans are favored by 1.5.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, maybe a half a point, but I look at it, and I'm just thinking, yeah. I mean, like, it's going to be a rough game, but you got to beat this Patriots team. You just got to.
Yeah, this is a must-win for all must-have, if anything, just to get back off this nine. But, man, this may be, we as fans and media, this may be one of the few games you can go get a win. Like, if you go look at the schedule now, I'm not looking at it as the same. I am not. I go, Washington? Yeah.
Hey, listen, though, with the way Houston is playing, Chargers. If you get a little healthier.
I know we could get them. They went down, right?
I mean, Houston, I've always said my main thing
They've
on
lost
here
some receivers
was that Houston is clearly the best team in the AFC South. Right. But Houston and the national media need to take a step back and think about something, and that's there's more tape on C.J. Stroud, more tape on Bobby Slowick. This team will likely take a step back. And now this team, even before Nico and Stephon Diggs went down, still had road problems. Mm-hmm. They did not look like the Houston Texans of last year, but now the defense has gotten better. So this is kind of a weird moment for the Houston Texans. They're still the best, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that a Joe Flacco-led Colts team could start pushing the Houston Texans, and that's why they made the move.
Yeah, so now they're 6-3, and what is Indianapolis 4-4 or whatever? See, they're only a game back. That's
just saying.
Is that game and a half back or whatever?
I mean, it's kind of wild watching the Houston Texans, and so far, the other 3 teams have performed to the expectations I thought. It's Tennessee Titans that have not performed to the expectations I thought. I just thought they would be the second best team. Does not mean a second best team in the AFC South. Does not mean that I thought they were going to be world beaters or anything, but I thought they would be able to, have a winning record in the division. Mm-hmm. Listen, they still can technically. I mean, they've only had one division game, so and it's the Colts. So they still can have a division record. I don't think they will, but I still think they can. But at the end of the day, the Texans aren't as bulletproof as everybody want to make them out to be, and they had a really good offseason that everybody raved about. But even with Diggs and Nico in the lineup, this wasn't a bulletproof Texans team. And that just goes to show you, for everybody that wants to be the Texans, that glimmer can fade a little bit after that first year. Because there's more evidence, more stuff out there, and not all the pieces work. You don't have the injury luck sometimes. Stuff like that the ball doesn't bounce your way in injury sometimes. Sometimes it's turnovers. Like sometimes there's these situations. So it's just interesting. it's interesting to see like everybody's still like Texans, but then after last night, everybody's like, this Texas lost to the Jets.
I don't know. I'm feeling the Titans in a blowout. That's what I'm saying. Yep.
I said the same thing on Football and Other Efforts.
Did you? You know I didn't watch it.
I know, but I said the same thing. I said I think they're going to win pretty big. Now, it may not be like 21 points big.
No,
I think these Tennessee Titans are going to beat the Patriots.
Like 28-14.
Yeah. I think they're going to beat the. I'm
They're going
with
to be
you.
in control of this game. And
People are going to call us homers. They're going to think we're crazy. They're going to ask if Kyle Turley's in here. I mean, for us to both think that the Tennessee Titans are going to win decisively on Sunday with no evidence, they're going to think that the chat, they're going to think Kyle Turley's in here off screen.
Man. Definitely, if I'm picking them, then my record is not good.
Sammy, what do you think is going to happen in this Tennessee Titans game?
I would love to see the Titans just get a win.
Get a win, right?
Blaine, we've talked about this before. I didn't grow up a Titans fan, but being from here, I would love to see the hometown get a big win.
Who'd you grow up being a fan of?
The Dolphins.
Yeah.
Oh, the Dolphins.
The Dolphins. The one win on the Titans schedule, the Miami Dolphins.
Thank you for wrapping that in.
No
just a little
problem.
bit. Everyone kept it real quiet.
That's all we got. That's all we have. At least you got Tua back. That's all we have. That will do it for us here on Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons. We hope you guys had a great time, great week. We had a blast here. Coming up next is 3HL. So make sure you do that. Don't forget, even though that you may not be excited about the game, pregame show, Blaine Bishop, postgame show, Zach Lyons on Sunday. So you might as well just tune in and hear us talk to other people. Get other insights. I'm a little bit more loose in the post-game presser, or the post-game show, so it'll be great. So, other than that, in the meantime.
And in between time.
Peace.